350 years ago, England was torn apart by civil war. It would last 9 years.
The tape barrier comes right around in a sweep behind the...
Now, in commemoration, Howard Giles and his team from English Heritage, in conjunction with the English Civil War Society, are mounting a series of special events over the coming months. This is the story of one weekend, the assault of Helmsley Castle.
Well, English Heritage looks after about 350 historic properties around the country, and a good deal, about 50 of them, were actually taking part in the Civil War at the time. They were barracks or castles or whatever, and a lot of them were besieged, either by one side or the other. And so we're doing quite an extensive programme of reenactments and living histories, showing what life was like at the time, and trying to show a little bit more about the military side of things, which of course did seal the fate of the king and the country.
On the fields now owned by Duncombe Park, the castle was besieged. It was a bloody struggle for the principle of democracy.
The actual siege of Helmsley Castle was very dramatic, in so much as the parliamentary commander, Sir Thomas Fairfax, not Oliver Cromwell as people always think, but Sir Thomas Fairfax, was very seriously wounded by a shot from the walls. And if he'd died, things could have gone very, very differently for the parliamentary cause. But he was a strong man and he recovered. And eventually, the castle were allowed to surrender and march out with their drums, colours and muskets, because the parliamentary troops just could not make the castle fall. So almost a case of, please go away, please can we have your castle? And the royalists said, oh, all right then.
David Blackmore of the English Civil War Society commands the Parliamentary Army. This weekend it's about 600 strong. A real battle would have involved thousands, but not many soldiers would be killed. That's because the men were conscripts. They tried to stay alive. Even in defeat, they could live to fight another day.
Defeat was basically trying to save your neck and get away to fight another day. If you couldn't get away, then you got a good chance of being able to surrender and possibly even being exchanged later on for a prisoner from the side that had captured you. So the ethical question mainly arises in sieges, when the besieging force would give the defenders an opportunity to surrender. They would offer them quarter. If they refused that quarter and the castle, the fortification, whatever, was subsequently stormed, then they had forfeited any right to be able to surrender. And they were just put to the sword.
Once dressed up on the soldiers' campsite, society members pride themselves in the roles they play and their attention to detail. Well into the night, they'd be arriving from all around the country. It's a grand social occasion and a time to meet old comrades. Communal singing of battle songs by the fire is an old regimental tradition.
It's certainly traditional in this regiment. We've always been a singing regiment for many years, and it's something that goes on every night. A little bit of drink and a good fellowship, good company, warm fire. What more can you want of a weekend?
You want this? Yeah. Right. What name is it? Pressler, Robin. Pressler.
With hours to go before the battle, the last of the parliamentary cannons, or field pieces as they were known, were being put into position. In a battle, guns like these would be used to blast the stone of a castle's defences and disrupt the enemy, rather than kill. The gunners were skilled mercenaries and would fight for either side, depending on who paid the most. As rehearsals started, the musketeer regiments marched on to go through their drill. Over this weekend, 2 battles would be fought. Each side would have a chance to win. To tailor the reenactment for an audience, the whole event is scripted. After weeks of planning, the generals of both armies finally meet. Each must know the other's moves in advance.
An artillery position, and the musketeers I'm putting...
Jonathan Taylor is the commander of the Royalist Army. He has the advantage here. Helmsley Castle is difficult to storm.
As you walk up with your guns on the mound there, the right-hand side, At first, you can have as many as you want, really, but because the musketeers keep the heads of your gunners down, so you pull them back as we sort of catch up with you.
Yes, musketeers will be covering the engineers.
When this large body of shot approaches underneath you, which is what they will be doing to cover the blowing of the gate on the left-hand side.
The infantry is divided basically into two types of soldier, the musketeer and the pikeman. The musketeer has a matchlock musket firing a lead ball, which the bore of the musket is what's called 12 bore, which means that each bullet or musket ball weighs a 1/12 of a pound. And the musketeer also carries a sword.
Provided they dress as men, women can fight as musketeers.
I wish you'd stop shouting. You can get more by being nice than shout. So I'm married to him.
Remember, if you got one up the spout, keep the barrel pointed at the opposition. We come on! Continue making ready!
The pikeman, sometimes armoured, is armed with a 16-foot long pike and also with a sword.
Prepare to march! Prepare to march! March on! Get in threes now! Get in threes! Stop on your pike, packing tight! Who's getting? March on! Don't stop! Right on! Get yourself in! Push like
You've got to reform faster. You're not reforming fast enough. That's the main thing. And don't drop out after 2 or 3 pushes. Right? If I see people standing around this afternoon, I'm going to come and hit you with this, right?
With rehearsals over, Howard was making his last checks.
Things are going swimmingly. We've got people trying to climb the back walls of Helmsley Castle to get in for nothing, and the PA turned up late. But apart from that, everything's going really smooth and we've got it all sorted out. Typical for a large-scale event, you always get minor crises happening all the time, really, but all under control, and it should be a really good event.
The main problem is the fact that we are a scaled-down version of the real thing. Well, the problems are just the same. Sometimes you get the feeling it gets a little real, and you think, this must be pretty close to what it was like.
I'm pretty sure, they've got my size wrong. I think they have. Is that picking up all right? Take him apart. Come on. Make yourself handy and do his other side. Wait to change from fitting beer before we go on. Right, how much of an arm? Gentlemen, sir.
And up on the hillside, the parliamentary gunners are looking after their pieces, as the guns are known. Loading them and preparing them to fire.
For the ground infantry, attacking a castle was a long and arduous affair. Many assaults would be needed to wear down the castle and its defendants.
The whole army's coming up at us next! I want you to throw them back!
17th century battles frequently looked chaotic. Once underway, the generals would have to rely on local regimental commanders to make decisions. The infantry were amateurs. For them, it was every man for himself. And keeping alive. This assault was to prove fruitless.
Keep it moving! Drive up the hill! Drive up! Up the hill! Keep going! Keep going!
We don't drink because we want to. We don't drink because it's free. We just drink because we have to. Alcoholic.
Singing songs more reminiscent of a rugby club dinner, the Civil War reenactors celebrated a glorious battle. Over the weekend, every pub in Helmsley was full. In the 1600s, drinking wasn't just a pastime, more a necessity. The water was generally undrinkable. Most of the population quenched their thirst on small ale, a weak beer. People didn't go about drunk, though. They'd built up a tolerance to the alcohol. Back on the main campsite, some of the royalist contingent of Sir William Penniman's regiment were relaxing. These weekends are very much a family affair, with children encouraged to grow up through the regiments.
I think it's brilliant for families. We came as teenagers and we got married along with the majority here, and consequently we've all had children, and now we bring all our families and they're growing up in the regiment.
Mike Williams is the battlefield commander of the regiment. He's a war gamer. For him, it's serious fighting for fun.
They're not real Roundheads, and we're not real Royalists. In terms of, does our side want to win? Well, the script may say you lose that day, but you don't have to make it easy for the buggers on the other side, do you? And the idea is that what you want is for your regiment to do well. That's what it's all about. I mean, it's not macho. I mean, all our musketeers and drummers are a great number of girls, for instance. So it's not one of these things that is purely male-oriented.
There's lots of women that actually take part on the battlefield with cannon and with musketeers, the women musketeers. So, you know, you have that choice.
In a world without radio or TV, socializing was at the heart of 17th century life. It was a much more leisurely lifestyle than today's. Well, it's all a good excuse for a party. In the morning breeze, the living history camp just next to the battlefield came alive. Here, members volunteered to live a 17th century lifestyle. It was a tough existence following an army, but women were left with no choice other than to follow their conscripted husbands.
I do it basically because I'm a costume historian, so I make things for people and I'm researching my way through making them, finding out what works, and I enjoy dressing up and showing off.
I thought it was restful, the first one that I went to, and it was just so different than your working week, which is frantic, computers and technology, and then you come to something like this and you didn't get washed all weekend and you just sat round a campfire and it was lovely.
Much of a soldier's life was spent whiling away the hours. At a siege, it could be months before a surrender. Many died of disease and starvation waiting to fight, rather than in combat. This tent would have belonged to an officer's lady. Sue is acting the part of her maid. Officers' wives still had to live off army rations.
She calls me fat.
The fare would be better though. Bread, cheese, fruit and fine meats when they were available.
If you look about the tent, this is a grander tent than you've seen of the soldier ones, and you see many of her clothes and equipment about. She has a bed and myself to look for her needs.
Like the soldiers, Sue would have to sleep on the floor.
All right, cheers.
Back at the main campsite, Des Thomas checked the powder rations. He's been involved with the Society for over 20 years and helped write the battle script.
It's escapism. I think that's the answer, really. You know, I work at Leeds Prison, work as a prison officer there, and you come away to a weekend and you can bring the wife and children. You really can. And the dog and the cat, and the caravan. Have a nice weekend out. It's escapism, get dressed up in something different. It's a game. But I mean, the excitement's there, but it's controlled. I mean, there are officers and sort of a structure there to control it, so it's obviously controlled.
On the battlefield, there are few injuries. Children are kept well away. For a pikeman carrying his 16-foot pike, it's no more dangerous than rugby.
It's an extremely long weapon. If I can bring it down. It's got a very sharp head with a series of longuettes either side. These are actually designed to stop cavalry weapons from chopping the head from the pike. So that basically the main aim of the pike is actually to defend against cavalry rather than the more obvious use of attacking infantry, shall we say.
It was time to fight again.
Oh, move! Mr. Johnson, you are late. Move!
The Society have their own version of 17th century battle techniques. For reenactments, the pikes aren't aimed to kill.
To do it 17th century style, the pikes would go in, we'd all drop our pikes like this, and you actually go in and thrust with the pike against the enemy troops. And obviously, we tend to do this close up to the crowd to give examples of what it looks like in close quarters. From the Society's point of view, it's very effective, but it's not very competitive. And what tends to happen is as people close in, to avoid damage to people, you bring the pikes up across the chest, pack in tightly, and you try and push the other side over.
The war was fought for religion, politics, and social freedoms. Parliamentary soldiers needed to be religious, godly, and valiant. Charles I, a Protestant, had married a Catholic queen, Henrietta Maria. Parliament fought to recover him from what they saw as malignant papist company.
At the moment we're just sniping generally against the Roundheads battery over on the top. We may not take any casualties of theirs, but we may well keep their heads down, upset their aim. We'll also, if they start bringing on any troops through the gap, we should be able to, quite likely, take out some of the officers on their way in as well.
We would be quite happy to be shooting at the castle from this range, as I said, because we're just outside the maximum effective range of the muskets, but we could be quite nicely hitting the same area of wall again and again and again until it fell over.
Who's our king? King Jesus! No bishop! No glory! England's freedom! Soldiers' rights! Fire! Comrades, now!
For me, it's very much like playing war games, except these are real people and they have real sensibilities and real morale problems, and so there's a considerable command element to it. It's great fun. At times it can be very exciting, at times it can be quite frightening, but it's always a matter of theatre, it's always a matter of making sure that you tell a story and that the people out there enjoy it, so we take it very seriously.
Give fire!
These guns will hold this position to support our infantry if they sally out, and also to beat back any attack from the rebel forces. If we were firing ball and canister, these weapons would be able to inflict damage. Canister isn't accurate at all, and any gun. Firing ball with these, you're probably looking at 200 metres, 300 metres.
would have happened historically is he'd have ridden through the position and tried to cut the crews down and damage the guns and take them out of action for the rest of the battle. These are the only siege pieces there are here. It would take away any chance we would have of actually taking the castle.
Ian, can you try and push this lot into the centre? Yes, we will. Push that way.
This time, the parliamentary forces won control. As in the real siege, the castle didn't fall. For the Society and English Heritage's spectators, it was a glorious lesson in 17th century history.
We're bringing history alive. We are, at the very least, giving an enjoyable weekend away for our members and an enjoyable day out for the public who come to watch us. But we're educating as well. We've done a great deal of research, and we think that it's very important that people should actually grasp that a lot of the features which we nowadays take for granted, Parliament, all the freedoms, emanate from this particular period in our history.
It was brilliant. We had a target of between 5,000 and 10,000 people coming along, and we had 8,000 people. The weather was kind to us, the show was spectacular. Hopefully 8,000 happy people have gone away knowing more about English heritage and Duncombe Park, of course, and will come along and look at other sites and know more about their history.